Good evening and welcome to the Greer City Council meeting. This is a called meeting, it's a regular meeting called this evening, February the 9th, 2021. I'm off to a slow start. We might need to redo this. It is a called meeting. It is being held on February the 9th, 2021, and we will go from there. Having called the meeting to order, I would like to ask if you would to please stand with me as we do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I will offer an invocation for council. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we do indeed come this evening thankful for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us during the day and through this season of time. We thank you for health and strength, but we also ask that you remind us of those that are in positions of vulnerability, those that are facing an evening without shelter or beginning an evening without adequate food, without adequate protection, may be in homes of violence, Lord, or even poverty. We ask that you would make us mindful of those around us that face those situations on a daily basis. And we pray that as a community that we will embrace them and lift them up as a calling and a reference to your calling upon our lives. We do indeed acknowledge that you have called us to public service, and we thank you for that calling. We ask that you go with us through the remainder of this meeting this evening. Give us insight and understanding to what is taking place. And thank you for the opportunity to serve this city in that fashion. We ask these things in Christ's name and for his sake. Amen. Ms. Duncan, do we have anybody to appear in public forum this evening?
No, sir.
Council, with that, we will move to the minutes of the council meeting. You have in your packet this evening the minutes from the January 26th meeting from 2021. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk this evening? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, from time to time, we have the opportunity to recognize employees for length of service with the city. It is always a special time for us to take and to do this. It also reminds us in many ways how long we have been here, because when we see some of the names on the list and how long they've been here, it is hard to believe how time flies sometimes. And we always welcome this opportunity to recognize those folks who have been faithful and loyal employees through the years. And so tonight we offer a resolution which states that the City of Greer endeavors to recognize and reward its dedicated and faithful employees. And whereas Meredith Anzur has served in the Parks and Recreation Department for 5 years, Ashley Stacy has served in the Police Department for 5 years, Edward Denko has served in the Court Administration for 10 years, Alicia Williams has served in the Administration Department for 10 years, Bill Worrell has served in Parks and Recreation for 10 years, Lady Munoz has served in Administration for 15 years, and Patrick Fortenberry has served in the Police Department for 25 years. These employees have served in a distinguished and professional manner. Now be it therefore resolved that the City Council of the City of Greer, South Carolina, in a duly called meeting, has assembled and wishes to officially recognize and commend to these employees for their distinguished and dedicated service for which they have performed. Be it further resolved that the City of Greer hereby rewards these dedicated employees with their certificate of appreciation and administrative day off with pay, approved this 9th day of February 2021. I'm going to ask the administrator to join me here in the front, if he would, and as we call your names, if you will come up and receive a certificate And we'll stay up here for just a minute. We'd like to get a picture if we might. You may possibly have seen us up here talking just a minute ago. We have a presentation this evening by Alan Smith, and Alan is certainly no stranger to the city of Greer, having spent a number of years with the chamber here and doing a magnificent job, and did not skip a beat as he went to the Spartanburg community and has done a great job for those folks over there, and is just leading that One Spartanburg effort over there and doing lots of great things. And we like from time to time to get updates from Mr. Smith and his organization about things that are going on, and hear a little bit about what we might expect. As many of you are aware, about a third of the city of Greer is inside the Spartanburg County limits, and so we are an integral part of that community in a lot of different ways, and we appreciate Alan's leadership on that side of the county line. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Mr. Mayor, certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here. Appreciate the kind words, members of council. Always appreciate the opportunity to come back to Greer. In fact, I have with me Timothy Bush, our new Chief Tourism Development Officer, and tonight I'm going to show him a little bit about downtown Greer's hospitality. We are expecting to spend a little money and have dinner. So again, appreciate the opportunity to be here, and really will always appreciate the opportunity that this community afforded me as a young man some now 10, 11 years ago. Also want to recognize Reno Deaton. He is a colleague and he's a partner in our economic development work. Greer is a big part of Spartanburg County's overall success. When you look at what Caliber Ridge and Velocity Park bring to the table, certainly a partner that we value. And yes, Timothy's been on the tour with me. We give an update to all 13 municipalities throughout Spartanburg County, and it seems like we get through one, a year has passed, and we start all over again. So here we are again, and I want to tell you that momentum in Spartanburg County, while it has slowed a little bit over the past year, it is wide open, and it continues to be. Our pipeline from 19 to 20 was strong. From 20 to 21 is even stronger. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time tonight just giving you a brief overview of some metrics. We are North and South Carolina's only consolidated business, economic, and tourism development organization. So I'm going to give you an update as it relates to general business, economy, and tourism development. So 2020, by the numbers for us, was good, all things considered, but quite frankly, in any environment, it would have been good. We recorded $433 million in investment. One thing we like to see is 57% of that was expansions. And so what that says, to the greater international community is you can not only come to Spartanburg County and be successful, you can grow once you get here. So we always like to see that expansion number be a little higher than 50%. 25 projects were worked, 446 new jobs. We worked 135 RFIs last year, 10 countries represented. You see that 36% of our project base was advanced manufacturing. You do see 10% multifamily. Right now, within 5 miles of the center of downtown Spartanburg, there are 2,257 multifamily units either under construction or in the pipeline. We put last night 780 new multifamily projects, 780 units of multifamily projects in front of City Council. And so to put that in perspective, prior to that 2,257 number, there were only 500 multifamily units in downtown Spartanburg. So that is a sector of the economy that's growing, and we expect that to continue. We have seen some success in the office corporate space, and that's been a focus of ours. We needed to diversify our economic development approach, and we expect that to continue as we move forward. 95.1% office occupancy rate. Obviously, with people doing more of working from home, we're probably going to have a little more office product than we have in the past. So we actually think that's an opportunity as we ramp up our corporate white-collar recruitment efforts. Also want to point out, you see an asterisk by the investment numbers and the new job numbers. We only report projects that we intimately work on. So we don't capture an investment that just organically came to the community. Some economic development organizations, that's the way they report their metrics. That's not the way we report ours. Just want to be clear about that. From a green standpoint, this has really everything to do with our effort to bring our economy back from COVID. We're calling it Bringing Back the Burg. It's a 33-member task force co-chaired by County Councilman David Britt and Dr. Kay Woodward. I'm going to give you some metrics related to COVID in a moment, but before I do that, I want to turn it over to Timothy Bush, our new Chief Tourism Development Officer, to talk a little bit about tourism in Spartanburg County in 2020.
Thank you. Good evening. As Alan mentioned, we have been working to bring back the burg, bring back our community. And what you see when you look at the numbers, you see a 3.8% increase in hotels in Spartanburg County. We did add a hotel even in the midst of the pandemic, which I think is quite remarkable. But you see a 26.7% decrease in hotel revenue demand. So obviously less people coming to our community. Now I won't run through all these numbers for you because you can clearly see them, but I want to spend a little time focusing on the wins. Second year hosting the Softball Junior Olympic Cup, major event for our community. 4 NCAA bids, which is going to bring over 6,000 room nights to this community. I think that is a testament of the hard work of our team to look at how we attract people to our community, particularly in this pandemic. Also, we've been awarded a conference, the Southeast Tourism Society. That conference is 14 different states come into our community in September. First time ever to be able to showcase our community to all of the incredible Southeast states and showcase what we have to offer. Even though the numbers look bleak, I want to point out that we are moving forward in a really great direction. Just today, a study was released from Longwood International. They are a company that really focuses on tourism research and really surveying American travelers. And what they have found is that 81% of Americans plan to travel within the next 6 months. That is the highest level it's been since the pandemic started. So with that in mind, we know that better days are ahead for our community.
Thank you, Timothy. And of course, Timothy's slated with filling hotel rooms in Spartanburg County. We realize that there's a hotel under construction in downtown Greer. It's in Greenville County. But some of these tournaments that we are having great success in recruiting, there will be significant spillover into Greenville County, especially in this area, in the Pelham Road, so on and so forth, because we just do not, even with the rapid product growth we've had, we do not have the hotel rooms to accommodate a lot of these tournaments that are coming to town. So you should be the beneficiary of some of Timothy's work. Now I want to talk a little bit about bringing back the Berg, because that's really our work presently and will be our work probably for several months moving forward. As I said before, we established a task force back in April, and we really wanted to make sure that our work from the very beginning was guided by data, countywide data, because as you all know, this whole situation has been moving. It's a fluid situation. Regulations are changing, CDC's changing guidelines, so on and so forth. Business compliance regulations are changing as well. So we just wanted to make sure that it was guided by data. So what we decided, our task force, the leadership committee made up by County Administrator Kohler Alverson, City Manager Chris Story, and a handful of private sector interests, decided that we would feel confident about our community's recovery if our benchmarks could reach 80% of 2019 totals. So what you have here really is a comparison of 2019 versus 2020. The dark bars are 2019, the light bars are 2020, and the neon line is the benchmark that we've set. So the first category you see is, and there's only about 28 categories I'm going to go through this evening. That was a joke. Just kidding. I'll keep this as brief as I can and hopefully leave some time for some questions. The first category you see is capital penny sales tax. Back in November of 2017, Spartanburg County voters by 63 to 37% approved an additional penny sales tax. And this is a great barometer of retail growth or retail activity in any community. And I'm happy to report that the 2020 capital penny sales tax was 105% of what it was in 2019. So people actually spent more money on retail type items in 2020 than they did in 2019, which really positions the community well to more than fund the brand new Spartanburg County Courthouse, South Carolina's only city-county joint municipal complex, and a new countywide emergency operations center. Also of interest to you all is County Council, when they passed the statute to put the referendum in front of the voters, they did not have to do this, but they did, and they went ahead and said that any excess funds over the projected $224 million over 6 years would be dedicated to roads. So right now, we're on track. If collections continue, we would be on track to be around $300 million after the 6 years. So that's going to be, again, anything can happen, but an additional $70 to $75 million for county roads, some of which would be obviously in or around the Greer community. GSP passengers, we all know that people are not flying like they used to. It's 41% of what it was in 2019. But cargo, and I'm sure Reno is very familiar with this, cargo at GSP is actually up 12%, making it the 20th busiest cargo hub in the United States. Morgan Square, a lot further away from where we stand tonight, but the center of our downtown, it was vitally important to us that we were doing necessary things to continue to drive people downtown. So I called Greer right out of the gate and said, tell me about your shuttle service. I'm going to rip off and deploy that completely in downtown Spartanburg. We also have free valet point to point. We've also put up tents on Main Street and completely closed Main Street. And we think that that has paid off because even in the midst of a pandemic, 82% is the number of pedestrians 2020 versus 2019. Major events have been canceled. Dickens of a Christmas, Spring Fling, the Christmas Parade, annual events over and over and over have been canceled, but we still met that 80% benchmark goal that we set back in April. Building permits, again, been quite remarkable here. Obviously, commercial development is down, but as I mentioned earlier, residential is way up. So building permits are 90% in 2020, what they were in 2019. Hospitality tax, this one surprised me. In fact, I had our team verify it 3 times because it just didn't seem like hospitality tax, which is a barometer for the restaurant community, would be the same in 2020 of what it was in 2019 given all the capacity restrictions. But we were at 96% 2020 totals were of 2019. And so we've asked members of the restaurant community, why do you think that is so? Why were we didn't really drop precipitously like some communities did, but we're kind of flat. And the explanation we've gotten up to this point is because delivery is now so popular, the average ticket in a restaurant has gone up 20 or 30% to accommodate for delivery fees. So I'll give you an example. There's a gentleman on Timothy's Tourism Development Advisory Board that owns a slew of Bojangles and owns Fuddruckers. He said his average ticket price prior to the pandemic was $5.92, and now it's $9.18. He's raised his prices to accommodate the delivery fees, and you're seeing that reflected in the hospitality tax numbers. So again, hospitality tax really holding its own in the midst of a pandemic. Timothy alluded to this. Revenue per available room, 68% of the 2019 rate. It's going to take some time to bring this back, but I'm very delighted about the energy and innovation that Timothy's bringing to our work, and we feel confident, later this year we're going to start seeing these statistics from a tourism standpoint start moving. And to me, this is the most remarkable one. Unemployment rate, in April we peaked at 14.6%, and we are literally back at full employment at 4.6% as of December. So that is an overview of what happened in Spartanburg County last year, an overview of what we're doing today and moving forward to bring the burg back, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Alan, what do you attribute that last number to? I know you've got a fairly diverse industrial base, and of course you've got an Amazon facility and some other things over there that have probably exponentially helped that number. Any idea though as to why you've been able to drop it so significantly since April and May?
Well, April and May, obviously a lot of places were completely closed, and you see, again, manufacturing as a sector of our economy. We have some manufacturing operations in Spartanburg County that never closed. So that was really a strength of ours. And you do see in April and May where, regardless of the sector, a lot of them were closed. But then you see, I think we were quicker than most communities, given the manufacturing presence, to go ahead and open back up. And we did that. The other thing, which is a national trend, is the $600 federal unemployment bonus was purely economic statement here, not a political statement, but it was a disincentive because if you were getting federal employment bonus of $600 plus state employment, basically the number worked out is if you made less than $48,000, you were getting paid more or the same to be home. So when you see this graph really change, that's the reflection of the $600 unemployment bonus going away because people return to work.
How are these figures Spartanburg countywide or?
Countywide.
Countywide.
All the data other than the Morgan Square visitors is countywide.
So there's obviously no way of breaking it out. I understand that. But in terms of compiling these numbers, what effect, either positive or negative, would you assume from all of the categories that we were looking there were either positively affected by other communities than Spartanburg proper, or negatively impacted by the communities other than Spartanburg proper? I mean, is this a trend that you're seeing countywide, or is Spartanburg leading the way? Are the smaller communities holding their own? I mean, any analysis in that regard?
I think from an employment standpoint, we've always been, at least in the 6.5 years I've been there, we've always been top 5, top 6 communities. In fact, this was mind-boggling. Pre-COVID, when you backed out some seasonally adjusted data, we actually saw a month where it was 1.9%, which that even seems like a mathematical error. So, I do think that our presence in manufacturing has really buttressed a lot of this stability and a lot of this growth as well. So I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Well, I guess my question would be, are the smaller towns in Spartanburg County holding their own? Are they helping? Are they hurting? Or, I mean, is Spartanburg dragging all the rest of us along, or are we all contributing?
Great question. It depends on, so obviously the multifamily and the white collar corporate, that's a city of Spartanburg centric type thing. But when you look at some of these numbers, especially manufacturing, distribution, and logistics, the smaller municipalities are really holding their own. In fact, I'm not giving you any inside baseball. Project Relay went before Spartanburg County Council about 2 weeks ago. That was a $380 million project, substantial number of jobs, and that's going to be in a small community just down the road from Greer. And so, the 101-290 corridor, Woodruff is poised for some big things. I mean, we're already seeing 100% multifamily growth in the Woodruff community. So again, Chesney, Cowpens, all those areas, especially with some strategic infrastructure investments in sewer and so on and so forth. To answer your question, I mean, I don't think these numbers would be what they would be if it wouldn't be for our communities out in the county.
Others?
Alan, on the accommodations piece, I understand the hotel stays are down. People aren't traveling. What is the big draw to Spartanburg? How are you marketing the community now? How are you trying to what's bringing people in? Is it the events or what is it exactly?
Well, I mean, our bread and butter has been these sports tournaments. And I'll let Timothy speak to that. But County Council made a strategic investment, I'd probably say 8-10 years ago in Tiger River Park, and it's just remarkable what that has been able to draw in for the community.
Kind of echo that point. We have lost very few sporting events to other communities. We've been able to pick up from North Carolina because of their how their state is handling COVID. So we've been able to take advantage of those opportunities, which I think has helped us really, one, stay afloat, and two, create a real place for ourselves as a sports destination in the Southeast. So I think that will continue, and we will continue to see those gains. But, it was really remarkable that we didn't lose any of our events. Some of the events that were scheduled for last year or this year have already moved to 2022. So we will still be able to claim those opportunities for the community.
We have the blessing, too, of having 7 colleges in Spartanburg County, 5 of which have athletic facilities. And so we're able to really take those to the market. And the Upward Sports Facility on 29, we're able to take that to the market as well. So, the fact that County Council invested in that product is huge. I know sometimes that investments like that can be controversial, but they pay off in the long run big time.
If I were a taxpayer, I'd say, but you still had to tack on penny tax. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll change your mind offline, Councilor Bettis. I'll try.
Hey, he's been anti-recreation for years.
Others, while we've got Alan?
Alan, you said cargo traffic through GSP 12% up, you say? Mm-hmm. I assume, is that measuring inbound and outbound as well?
I'm not exactly sure about that. Reno? Yeah. Not sure. Good question. We cannot say enough, though, when you talk about cargo, and you are the beneficiary to this. The Greer Inland Port has been a game changer for our community. Made us really be a part of conversations on certain projects that we never would have been a part of.
I think that it probably is telling, and one of y'all may know this, but when Senator first started, it was 2 days a week, if I'm not mistaken, and I think they're at least 5, I think now, are they not? Reno, or do you know? Yeah, so international flights have picked up significantly on the cargo side.
Yep.
Anybody else? Well, now that you're using our electric vehicles in our app, if you want a good tagline, there's one called "Yeah, that's Spartanburg." Y'all might want to try to use that. See how that works?
That's good. I like it. We like there's only one.
I don't blame you, and it's a good one. Alan, Timothy, thank you for your time this evening. We appreciate it, and as y'all were making this presentation, we'd love to have the opportunity at some point maybe to do something similar for Spartanburg County, so we'll see if we can put that together at some point.
We'll do it. We'll send the message to Cole. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Time for the administrator's report. Mr. Merriman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just want to remind you of 2 things in particular. One, next Friday the 19th, we will have our budget workshop kickoff. We will start the day around 8:30, and we'll start presentations with department heads around 9. So we will have all the department heads come through and kind of give a year in review and a budget outlook for their department. And then we'll have the opportunity to discuss those things in the afternoon. The second thing is just to remind you that the statement of economic interest that's required of the South Carolina Ethics Committee is due at the end of March. The other thing I want to do is recognize Greer as a municipality, specifically council, because we have been added to the 2021 Municipal Elected Officials Institute of Government Honor Roll, meaning all of our council members have completed are graduates of the association's MEO Institute. And I did confirm that there were some remedial classes for Mr. Airwood, but he did complete all of them. And so I want to congratulate him. He did make it through. And I know I'm in trouble for having said that because he's probably going to watch this, but I just like picking
We'll
at
be
him.
sure to lay it along.
Yeah. And the last thing is, as part of what we've talked about is the way we're developing and the way we're growing in Greer. Staff has developed a TIA, traffic impact analysis ordinance. We have spent a significant amount of time in it. Brandon and Ashley in particular and our planning staff has devoted a lot of time in developing that. We are going to have it reviewed by a third-party traffic engineer to kind of give us some insights on the strengths and weaknesses of those, and then we will be bringing it through the normal ordinance process within the next 6 weeks or so once we get some of the kinks worked out. But I did want to give you all a heads up on that. Beyond that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. With that, then, we will move to appointments for boards and commissions. Mr. Seifert joins us this evening to give us a update in that regard.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Provided in the agenda, you will see that we received a resignation letter from Scott Stevens, who serves as one of our general public representative appointments on the Accommodations Tax Committee. And at your tables there, we have provided a biographical sketch of someone we would like to recommend for you for his replacement to fulfill his term through December 31st, 2021, and that is Sharon Murray from Spinning Jenny.
Thank you, sir. That comes as a recommendation from staff. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second. Have a motion and a second. Any questions of Mr. Seifert after review of the application? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, let's move to items of old business, the second and final reading of ordinance number 65-2020. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Linda Smith located at 3700 Brushy Creek Road from C2 Commercial District to RM2 Multifamily Residential. Mr. McMahon, any new or additional information in regards to ordinance 65-2020?
No, sir, none at this time.
This comes without any new or additional information. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
Found out everything we need to know about this project last time. I'm going to vote in favor of it, but the jury's still out on whether or not that's a good location for anything.
Yeah, I think we hashed this one out pretty thoroughly at the last meeting. I still have reservations about the project, but that's what we vote on. So, anybody else?
Just an odd, it is an I'm with Riley, it's an unusually shaped building. It doesn't look like that's the way you would use it, but they have, the gentleman did what we asked them to do, and he presented a plan, and it looks like it's going to be workable, and it sounds like there's a need for a product like this. Based on, what I can see, they made it work.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
No.
Mr. Hopper,
No.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
No. Fails 3-2. In items of new business this evening, we have Chapter 22, City-Owned Cemeteries. Mr. Seifert, information in that regard, sir.
Again, thank you, Mayor and Council. First, I want to explain the situation that we have. Across the city and most of our receipts and fees that we charge, we have a resident rate versus a non-resident rate. And as you would expect, the resident rate typically means you reside, you actually physically live inside the city limits. However, for business licenses, that definition is a little different. The resident rate applies to if you own a business and business property inside the city limits. So what occurred during this event is we had an individual who does own business property in the city, but does not live in the city, came down to our business office and purchased a cemetery plot. The staff that he saw and purchased the plot from applied the business license definition. Later, he came back, wanted to buy a second plot, and saw a different staff member, and that staff member applied the non-resident rate. And he objected and wanted us to reconsider. We said to reconsider, you must pay first. So he did pay the non-resident rate. Talked to Mr. Merriman, and because there was some question as to how staff should apply this definition, we went back and refunded the difference in the interim until we were able to come to council. So when we brought this subject up with this gentleman, he wanted a written statement from us of the city stating our policy. Well, in our cemetery code, there is no definition. So I'm requesting tonight that if we can define resident as it applies to cemeteries, that we will amend the code and get that added, and then we'll be able to provide the written statement to this gentleman. And since that time, he has come back, and I think in total he's bought 4 or 5 plots. So I'm requesting tonight, as simple as it is, if we could clarify the definition for the code of resident as it applies to cemeteries.
Well, I'm gonna be clear on how I feel about it. I've been telling people for 20 years they can't vote in the city if they don't live in the city. And I don't think you need to be buried for cheaper if you don't live in the city. So I think it has to be a city resident to get a city resident rate.
I don't even see how having a business enters into it, because you can own a business and not vote in the city.
Correct.
You have a list all the spots, have a business in the city.
It was just that initial sale from the staff members that, created the error in the first place. And then he was requesting that, that
I think the definition
letter
of
from
a
the city.
resident is fairly clear.
Other?
Resident living in a place where you reside, by definition, is kind of how I would think about that myself.
I think he's, it's his prerogative to raise that question. But I will tell you from firsthand experience, our rates, and particularly for the resident rate and the non-resident rate, is more than fair. I mean, it's more than fair, and we for the most part have inherited these cemeteries. They are not perpetual care, except in the fact that we perpetually take care of them. And that's
That's a good one, Mayor.
that is on us, and that is on the residents. It's sort of like the CPW argument. I mean, we have liability for them, and I think the residents support that liability, and that's why they get a special rate.
You should need to live in the city to buy them. No, we don't care what you bury there, but you should have to live in the city to buy them.
Well, we do sell them to non-residents, but it's just a different rate.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Vote on that? A motion?
If you would, please, and then we'll get it written into the code.
We are going to amend the code.
You gonna give him a statement?
We will, yes, sir.
I wouldn't. I just didn't read it in the code.
I'll entertain a motion that we add a definition to resident to our cemetery regulations as they appear to better clarify that issue. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
You need a second.
Second.
Floor is open for any further discussion.
So your definition is the resident lives in the city limits?
Yes. It'll reflect physically residing within the city limits. Any other? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Council, let's move to the second item this evening. It's the first reading of ordinance number 1-2021, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Ford Park LLC located on Ford Street from RM2 to DRD. Mr. McMahon, information in that regard, please, sir.
Yes, sir. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property to DRD, as you stated. His hope is to create 25 lots for townhomes. Just to kind of go over the project, this is an aerial view of the property. Right here is the Clock Restaurant, and this is Poinsett. Here's the current zoning, showing that it is RM2. The future land use map shows that this is within a traditional neighborhood community. And this is kind of your street view of the area. It's that lot kind of right in front of Garfield's. So this is his layout. It's roughly 1.3 acres. It's going to be 25 townhomes. They'll be 3 stories in height. So the setbacks are going to be kind of your traditional setbacks, 20 feet off the property lines, interior stuff. We're going to have, hardy board, vinyl type material. This is kind of a different product for the area. We have not had 3, story townhomes before, but he did provide elevations and he will be tied to this. Each of these units will have a single car garage on the first floor, and then living space will be second and third floor.
That's a pretty good representation of what it's going to be.
Yes, sir. These are just a little bit different. The garages aren't in this one. They have parking, so he's going to get the garages put in. So you will see they should use similar material in this, and we'll hold him to that standard.
So there'll be cars entering and exiting all around it, or?
Their main access will be through that garage, and they'll have steps that go up inside.
No, he's talking about. if you
Oh,
look back
sorry.
at the site plan,
Right there.
Yeah, their only access will be on Ford Street.
I did have some inquiries from people in the neighborhood worried about traffic and about making sure it was not going to be low-income housing, which it is not.
It is market rate. Yes, sir.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or a representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Record will indicate that.
Hey, you know, people are always concerned about low-income housing. What's the definition of low-income housing, and what's the price range for low-income housing? You know, because that comes up a lot.
We
I want
do
to make
get that
sure
a
it's
lot.
not low-income housing. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think they understand what the price of low-income housing is now.
All I got were concerns about government. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, that too. You know what I'm saying? That too. Because low income is 120,000, and some of the people that call in about low income housing don't even live in a $120,000 house.
I think we probably could take our cues from both our housing authority and the Greer Redevelopment Authority, and the project that they are going to be doing in Sunnyside here will be townhomes. And if you remember from that discussion, those townhomes for people that are 80%.
I believe it's 80% of AMI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those homes will start at 130,000.
130,000. And people are calling that low income. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's
The upper end of that scale for those that would qualify, which is just beyond poverty for a family of four, would be 175. So the range from 130 to 175.
mm-hmm.
Well, I'll say I'm excited about this project. I mean, we've talked about infill development for years, and this truly is something that is close to the heart of the city. And it's very rare that we see good projects like this coming, that close to downtown, which is, I'm excited about it. I know it's unique in that it's 3 levels, but if you want to give people maximum amount of living space, you have to go vertical, and this is the way to accomplish that. So I like the fact that they give them the garage on the base level, and then the first and second level above that too for living space. I think it's a good fit. It'll definitely be different to see that because everything there is on one level. So it'll tower above everything else that's there, but I'm excited about that project. I like the location of it.
Yes, sir.
oddly enough, Mr. Dumas, if I'm not mistaken, 45 feet is the,
So within RM2, the max height that you can build in RM2 is 45 feet. These will probably be close to that. So, I mean, with the height that's already allowed in that area, it's not out of character for the current zoning.
When I saw this originally on the agenda, I had to chuckle. This piece of property has come before us half a dozen times in the last 15 years, and primarily as apartments. I remember that first apartment project, and I'm sure many of you do as well. We were tickled to death that somebody was going to build apartments there because that was going to be our first urban apartment project, basically. And this, I think this fits that area. It's going to fill a real niche. And to Mr. Dumas's point, it is an easy bicycle ride and not a bad walk down Carolina or Virginia there down to Duke Street and then right into the middle of town without ever stepping foot on Poinsett. So this is not out of the realm of walkability or at least accessibility without a car to downtown, and I think that's going to be a great amenity. Others?
it's going to be ownership or rental?
Ownership, from our understanding.
We've worked with this developer on several projects, and they do a good job.
Yes, sir.
Comes with a recommendation from staff. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
Got a second. Floor is open for any further discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. First reading of ordinance number 2-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Elijah Terry located at 717 East Poinsett Street from RM1 to C2. Mr. McMahon?
Yes, sir. The applicant is requesting to rezone the C2. Their hope is to convert the building that's there into a beauty salon. This is just an aerial view of the property showing that it's just on Poinsett. And here's the current zoning next to it. That property is zone C3, and across is the start of the inland port. This is within a traditional neighborhood community within our future land use map. And here's the current street view. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this, and they did recommend approval on January 25th. That is all that I have, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, sir.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Record will indicate no. For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion.
You said this is going to be a beauty salon?
That's their hope, is to get it converted. They'll have to pull permits to bring it up to commercial code.
Well, it looks like a beauty salon. Unlike the last property we had debate about, that does not look like multifamily. This looks like, I mean, I could go there and get my hair cut, It's quite visual.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. First reading of ordinance number 3-2021. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Delta Express Incorporated located at 325 Old Jones Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of S1 for said property. Mr. McMahon?
Yes, sir. The applicant is hoping to annex the property in and combine it with a portion that is in the back. That is ordinance 4, where they're going to request to rezone to S1 also. Here's an aerial view. This property is on the Old Jones, but you could really see it really well off of 85 as you go by. Here is the zoning. The property to the back is RM2. He is wanting to take roughly 1.02 acres and kind of combine that with his property that's going to be S1. This property is within a mixed employment community for the future land use map. And here's the current street view. And this is just what he is proposing. So the front portion, kind of where that dotted line is the part that he is requesting to annex, and ordinance 4 is the line below, which is what he will be requesting to rezone. And then he will combine those properties together. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing. They did make a recommendation of approval, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Record will indicate no. For the purpose of discussion, with the recommendation from Planning Commission, I'll entertain a motion to receive. Need a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, item 6 is the first reading of ordinance number 5-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Sunnyside Greer LLC located at 503 East Fairview Avenue from C2 to DRD. Mr. McMahon?
Did you skip one?
Mr. Mayor, 4 and 5 are related, but they're separate agenda items.
Excuse me, I looked up there and saw Old Jones Road and just went on moving down the road. All right, let's back up and take first reading of ordinance number 4-2021. Any new or additional information in that regard, Mr. McMahon?
No, sir, this is just the remainder of that portion that they are requesting to bring in, or to rezone and combine with that property from ordinance 3.
Thank you, sir. Comes with a recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Motion is second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Mr. Hopper.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Now we'll move to ordinance number 5-2021. This is an ordinance to change zoning classification of property owned by Sunnyside Greer LLC located at 503 East Fairview Avenue from C2 to DRD. Mr. McMahon.
Yes, sir, the applicant is requesting to rezone to DRD. Their hope is to create 34 townhomes on this property. Here's an aerial view of the property. This is just off of Moss Street and Fairview. This is just the current zoning. The property to the east is an automotive place. The applicant has assured us that they plan on putting in kind of a heavier buffer than what is going to be required, just to kind of give the new neighborhood potential buffer against that commercial. Future land use map shows this as a traditional neighborhood. Here's the current street view. And this is the layout that they're proposing. They'll have their one access off of Moss. They will have sidewalks that will go down Moss all the way to the end of their property line on Fairview. The units will be consistent of 1 to 2 bedrooms, ranging close to 1,250 square feet. And they're going to be traditional exterior materials such as fiber cement and that type of thing. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing. They did make a recommendation of approval, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
By show of hands, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Would you like to address council?
Hello, my name is Ben Abdom with the Greenville County Redevelopment Authority. We've been in discussions with the Sunnyside community for a couple years now about the need for more affordable housing opportunities in the community. And we feel rezoning the site will allow us to put a better use for the site, as well as incorporate missing middle housing concepts, high design standards that we feel is appropriate for the community. As you mentioned in a previous item, this is a project that's going to target low to moderate income families. So the target price for the units is going to be between $130 to $170 or so. And it will be for home ownership tenure as well. So rezoning the site will be an integral part to making the project feasible.
What's the time frame on this project?
I think, what do we have? We have it split up into 3 phases, about 3 years, I think.
They were 3 years total. I'm
Yeah.
Joe Smith. I'm with the Redevelopment Authority also. We're about to enter into a contract to demolish the old trucking terminal that's out there. So that's imminent to clear up that blight, get that off the site. Then we'll phase in the construction, the infrastructure, and whatnot, probably over a 36-month period.
Government funded.
Huh?
Government funded, which is not a bad idea. Because one thing that people need to keep in mind too when they start throwing out government funded is police officers live in government funded, firefighters live in government funded, city employees live in government funded. It's not a bad thing. That project that's up on Tryon Street, it's got market rent and government funded apartments. They coexist. It's not a rundown apartment complex, and they don't have no problems out of it. Well, I'm just saying for the record, and for the people, I'm just, putting that out there, that's a good project. And it's sorely needed.
So you subsidize this project to what extent? Do you have any idea how much the total construction of each unit is going to be, and how much you contribute to that?
Yeah, we disperse federal funds, so it's all HUD funded, and so
It'll be a layer of funding sources, and it'll have private and public funding sources in order to do this type of project. We're still developing all the budget numbers out as to what total construction will be. It's based on volatility and where we are with it over all over the place. I can tell you it's about $70,000 just to do the demolition. We'll get that done here pretty shortly. The rest of it, given the size of the units, and what we're anticipating cost-wise, I'd guess we're probably close to $120,000 per unit construction cost, based on where we are with today's dollars. What that subsidy looks like going forward with the layer of that, yeah, at 130 to 170 for market rate, or for our market rate. So we'll have to subsidize some of that with down payment assistance and other ways we get there. It's work, what's the catchphrase? We got workforce housing, we've got affordable housing, we have all these different definitions that people kick around as to what's in it, but I think Councilman Griffin's dead on the money when he says we've got firefighters and teachers and policemen and everybody else, community servants that'll be in that, should be right in their wheelhouse to be able to afford this. The nice thing about it too, it's gonna have a range of bedroom sizes in it. We've been doing this for a long time now, and we realize we need some one-bedroom units in the market, we need some two-bedroom units in the market too. We got some four-bedrooms that will be in this project, but we've got fours and threes and everything else too, so we need a wide base of things to be able to think what we need to in our target market. So I think it's a great project for the community. We have single-family rental units on Will Street that we already manage. It is a popular spot. One goes in for whatever odd reason, we go right back with it. We got about a 75-unit rental portfolio we manage all across Greenville County municipalities as well. We're 100% occupied, and we stay that way. And of course, this is a home ownership unit, but we run through our home ownership units pretty quick too. It's a quick marketing time to do it.
What happens on the resale side?
On what side of
Well, if they determine that, they don't want to live there anymore and they go back to market with this product, I mean, do they have to stay there for a certain length of time, or do they have to contribute some back to the?
There's a recapture provision that goes with the down payment assistance, depending on how much down payment goes into it, could be up to a 5-year subsidy. So if you want to flip it, depending on how much subsidy it could be up to 15, depending on how much money we put into it.
But there's not a lot of flipping done on those. Most people that move in there, they stay in those homes. There's not a lot of flipping.
We have a rich portfolio too. We don't see a lot of flipping with it. We do see some. Talk people like building equity, and that's what we got. We just get to recapture some of that too, so you don't see somebody in just 2 or 3 years and they're out of it.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how long you could keep the prices below market rate, because, economics kind of takes over, and then.
It does. Economics take over, and I think in this case here, you'll see anywhere from a 10 to a 15-year subsidy potentially in there, depending on how far we have to buy it now. So, which is great for the community because it maintains that price level for a period of years.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah, the one thing that we need to keep in mind as well too is the largest single deterrent to beginning to create generational wealth is home ownership.
It's home ownership.
And the opportunity to buy a home like this and to hold it for a reasonable amount of time, and to have that appreciation, and to be able to sell it, to afford that step up or to a different area or community or whatever, it's just the beginning of taking somebody from a life of rental to being able to afford a home.
And I'm sorry to keep asking these questions, but I just want some clarity. Do you build a model, or how do you market and sell these properties? Because there is a huge demand, obviously, in our community right now for any product that's under $200,000, and I believe that.
I guess we've been out at Creekside, which is off Bible Brook Road. We've been in that subdivision out there for about 8 years now. We're about to finish it up in the last 3 that I've built now. When we first started that about 8 years ago, we had 2 houses out for models. It took us a little while to get those sold in a few months. I think the price point was right around $100,000 or so. And now, the last 3 going up, the price points on those are around $145,000. So we've seen that much appreciation in about 8 years' time over there. And usually, if they see our product, which you drive through that little subdivision, see it, we don't have to do a model much anymore. And it's getting to the point now, as soon as we break ground, we've already got a list of people that are qualified to buy, so we can show that to them, and it's pretty much sells pretty quickly. The folks that are in that price point, a lot of times, they could see what the house might be, and then they could buy something sight unseen without knowing exactly, being able to walk around and smell fresh paint for smoking apartment and all that sort of stuff. But we're seeing now that because of the market, if we break ground, all they need is a picture and they're ready to buy. And so we can get them qualified because credit market's pretty good right now for these folks. With low unemployment, which it's a long-winded, I think I tried to answer your question, a long-winded way to do it, but out there when we do this one, we'll probably go in and do, I would say, 5 to 6 units right off the bat, get that up, one of them would become a model, and then we'll try to sell maybe next side of it. Depends on what the phasing looks like for it too. I suspect there's enough pent-up demand that our volume will be based on how much capital we put into it, how fast we can push it, because we can probably push it pretty hard, and then, and build this thing out even quicker than the 36 months.
Well, it's a seller's market right now, and so
Absolutely.
I'm kind of with you. I don't even know that a model's going to be necessary.
I don't think it will be. If it was, we'd have capacity to do so. But I really think as fast as we put it up, we'll have folks living on it.
But Creekside, that's a good example too, because, and it's really nice. It's been well maintained. And it's a mixture too, also.
You know, back to your point earlier, study after study shows that people will walk 15 to 20 minutes to a good recreational area, and that puts those folks just right in the wheelhouse of getting here to this park. So, I mean, it's a fairly easy walk from there to the park, a variety of different ways. So I think that's another amenity for those homeowners. Other discussion, questions? Based on the recommendation of this comes for public, this is coming to us for, no, it comes with approval. Yes. This comes with approval. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Questions or comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Council, first reading of ordinance number 6-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Raymond Gibbs, located on Earl Street from C2 to RM2 multifamily. Mr. McMahon?
Yes, sir. The applicant is requesting to rezone to RM2. His hope is to build a single-family residence on the property. This is an aerial view of the property. Here's the current zoning. I think you'll kind of be surprised. All of these yellow dots right here, while all of this is commercial, all of these are actual residences. So when zoning went into effect in '79, this area was just zoned commercial, but residents were allowed to stay. So his request is to just rezone this to RM2 to build a single-family house on it. It is within our traditional neighborhood community within the future land use map. And this is the current aerial view. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing. They did make a recommendation of approval, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, sir.
First question is, why do they want multifamily residential to build a single-family residence?
So within multifamily, you can do single-family. We base that off of the surrounding area is all multifamily. Once we go through the UDO, we feel that most of this will be rezoned to something that it might just be called something different. Based on the surrounding area, we just felt multifamily was the best option. They could potentially do a duplex, but nothing more than that based on the size of their lot.
And what is the difference between M1 and M2?
It roughly comes down to lot size. So for a single-family lot in RM1, it is 10,000 square feet, and RM2, it's 7,500 square feet.
So go back just 1 second on that, the picture of the lot. Do you recall just right off the top of your head what the size of that lot is? It looks fairly narrow as it is.
It may roughly be between 11 to 12,000 square feet total.
All right. Okay.
It's bigger than it looks.
Is it?
That's right over there, right behind Quality Foods. Huh?
It's 0.29 acres.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
They're just using it now to park cars, or
That's the house that's next to it.
Mm-hmm.
the lot is vacant?
It's vacant.
It's currently
There's
vacant,
nothing.
yes, sir.
Storing back there in that back shed, they're gonna have to figure out a different way to get there.
You got room to get to
Is
it.
the owner of the property or representative of the property with us this evening? Record will show no.
You know, on the RM2, what's the setback requirements? Because it looks to me like, I mean, the picture doesn't, the lot's not depicted as, I mean, it looks square. So, but that picture kind of shows that it looks more narrow and more like a rectangle to me.
So I think it's just kind of the way the angle of the picture was taken. And since nothing's developed back here, I think the picture was taken at this angle, so you're seeing nothing back there. So it looks like the lot is a lot longer than it really is.
So, you took that picture, you're saying, is this the road frontage right here?
Basically, right here at the bottom is road frontage.
Okay.
Their setbacks would be 20 feet off the front, 5 off the sides, and 5 off the rear.
Now, if we give them the RM2, that means they could build a duplex potentially there, right?
Potentially.
I mean, they're not, in other words, they're not going to be limited if they decide to go that route.
No, their only option would be a single family or a duplex at the most. But with the size of the lot, they would probably almost be able to do a duplex in RM1.
What's that?
They would almost be able to do a duplex in RM1 based off the zoning.
But I just about bet you he's gonna do a single family house.
It's family owned property. His hope is to build a new house. I believe they have a house that's there.
That's his relative that lives right next door. Yeah.
I mean, I don't care either way. I was just curious. You know,
No.
I just wanted to make sure that, because the way this is written, it's asking, you know, to get the RM2, but to build a single family house, and it's almost like it's kind of limiting. But I just want to make sure that's not the case.
I think once we get into this UDO and once we're able to get some of this stuff changed, you won't see an RM1 and RM2. You'll just see maybe a multifamily. And that's going to, we'll have it broken down where your lot for a single family is similar to this, but it's not going to be a RM1, RM2. It's just going to be a multifamily type use.
Council
Because
ordinance.
what's the zoning on it now is,
C2.
yeah. And the residents are in favor of changing it from C2. Oh, yeah, my phone rang off the hook, boss. I called him.
Regarding to ordinance number 6-2021, comes with a recommendation from staff. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So move.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for further discussion or questions. Comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we move to the first reading of ordinance number 7-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Linda Kaysen, located at 210 Campbell Avenue from R12 to R10. Mr. McMahon?
Yes, sir. The applicant is hoping to rezone the property to R10 and subdivide the property, create a new lot, and build a single-family residence on. Here's an aerial view of the property. Here's the current zoning. Future land use map has this property within our traditional neighborhood community. And kind of here's the street view. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this, and they did make a recommendation of approval of the R10 zoning. And that is all that I have, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, sir.
First question again is, where is the lot?
Let's see if I can go back to the aerial. So I believe when they loaded the picture, they took the picture on this side. It is actually, should
So
be on
there is a
this
house
side.
existing that,
There's an existing house. They'll have to draw a new property line. They'll have to meet the setbacks. They've already gotten the survey. They're able to meet the setbacks. So the line will kind of come from the back. You can go straight up.
Now, it's going to look similar to the.
It's going to
you know,
look
about
similar
4
to
lots
these
over.
right here.
Right.
Those were both zoned R75.
But this is R10. It's just because it's a little bit larger.
It's just that it's a bigger lot that they have, whereas these, when they subdivided, they didn't have the
so
20,000
it's not going to be
square
a
feet.
flag lot, right? It's
No,
gonna
sir.
be-
It will be
access to the street.
Yes, sir.
It'll just look like that.
Yeah.
One 4 lots down, but
It's going to
bigger.
look very similar to these right here.
Gotcha.
Tough, because the house looks like it's right in the middle of the lot, but
You're saying when they had the survey that gave them ample space to get the
Yes, sir.
On that side, right?
Yes, sir.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Record will indicate no. Comes with a recommendation from staff. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. McMahon.
Thank you, sir.
Item 9 is the first reading of ordinance number 8-2021. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer Code of Ordinances, Section 35-4, Article 1, and Chapter 35, Flood Damage Prevention, to reflect the date of the current flood insurance rate map and flood insurance study. Mr. Robert Rue, the Assistant City Engineer and our Stormwater Manager, joins us to explain what we're getting ready to do.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Quick background on this process. Back in August of 2018, the city was notified that they were working to update the flood insurance study and flood insurance maps, and changes were pending. And then following year, August 2019, had a meeting with State Department of Natural Resources and FEMA staff going over these changes. And that triggered us to send out notifications to the property owners in the new floodplain areas. And Steve Grant sent out those letters in September 2019. And then following that, the next step in the process was posting the notification in the Greer Citizen in the local paper, notifying citizens that changes to the floodplain maps were coming. And then that triggers the 90-day appeal comment process, where you can send in comments to FEMA, backed up with technical data. And then after that 90-day process, a letter of final determination is sent out, which defines the new date, the effective date on the floodplain maps. And so in the middle of that 90-day period, COVID lockdown hit. So FEMA hit pause on everything. That was March 23rd. And then in the summer, in June, that appeal period picked back up, and letter of final determination was sent out this past fall. And that final effective date for the new floodplain map is going to be May 4th of this year, 2021. So following all that process, I sent our floodplain ordinance to the State Department of Natural Resources to review, and the only required change was that date in the item before you this evening. And that's all the information I have for you right now. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Mr. Rue, how many individual residents does this affect?
So the old maps, there was a total of 34 structures in the floodplain in the special flood hazard area. The new maps, there's going to be a total of 72, so just over double.
I had two questions about, and you may not know the answer to this, but I'm guessing this is going to affect their homeowner's insurance if they have a house that's now in a floodplain.
So part of our notification to them is telling them they should contact their mortgage lender and get flood insurance, yes.
And I understand, I've dealt with this before in a transaction where a home was in the floodplain and required a special survey that, I don't remember exactly, I don't remember the details of it, but I just remember there being a special survey that was required for the person that had the house in the floodplain to get a mortgage on the property. So it makes it a lot more difficult to sell your property now that your home is impacted by.
I'm not sure for resale. For new construction, we do require it's an elevation certificate before and after construction. For these new structures that are going to be in the floodplain now, they're kind of grandfathered in. Their current houses are. But if they make any substantial improvements, or if there's any substantial damage caused by any disaster besides flooding, any damage aside from flooding, then they need to bring their structure up to meet code and meet the floodplain regulations.
And they have to disclose that too if they sell the property.
That's correct. Yeah, I think that's all triggered by the bank and reviewed by the banks during that process.
So was there any particular area that was more prone than another?
I forgot to add, the red areas are all the new areas or expanded areas of the floodplain in the city limits. So as you can see in that southeastern portion there, that's Maple Creek. Basically, they just provided a more detailed study of that section of the creek. I don't have the exact locations of the structures that were affected, but I can get that to you.
No, I wondered if that's what the red areas were.
Yep, sorry, I didn't make that clear from the beginning.
That is legit. There were several houses that were flooded in a weather event we had a few years ago.
Mhm.
Fortunately, the biggest part of that's along beside the Vern Smith, and I don't think there's any residential development in there.
That's correct, yes.
It's like one area up near Sunnyside and another there on the other side of East Poinsett Street would be the primary areas that would be affected.
And I think that's the CPW wastewater treatment plant right there.
Oh, the one on the other side of East
I think on the
Poinsett.
far east, yes, sir.
So most of what would have been affected would be along, is that, in the area behind Walmart there? Wayne?
Mhm.
Rushy Creek?
Yeah.
I mean, where,
Down there where that little creek, where it's low.
okay.
Huh.
Yeah. We are adopting this as a change to our ordinance. Is that what we're doing this evening?
That's correct.
Council, this comes as first reading of ordinance number 8-2021 with a recommendation from Mr. Rue, our Assistant City Engineer. I'll entertain a motion to receive ordinance 8-2021.
We already made a motion.
We got a motion on it? Oh, for the purpose of discussion, we did indeed. Any additional conversation in that regard, questions or comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, appreciate it.
First reading of ordinance number 9-2021, an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of an amended and restated economic development agreement by and between the city of Greer, South Carolina, CP Greer LLC, and WC GSP Lot 3 owner 8 LLC with respect to infrastructure credits to be applied against fee in lieu of tax payments related to certain investments in the city and other related matters. Well, I thought that's what our attorney was here for. Oh, Mr. Hughes was going to have to explain this one, so I was on you, Mr. Deaton.
I'm glad Mr. Hughes is here, just in case, Mayor.
Just in case.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Reno
Mr.
Deaton.
Deaton joins us for this conversation.
Yes, sir, with the Greer Development Corporation. Pleasure to be here this evening. The ordinance before you tonight is simply a request to add property to an existing development agreement. You'll recall back in 2019, we had the good fortune to work with Clarius Partners, and I want to recognize Craig Daniger for joining us here this evening. It's always good news for us when Craig is in the Greer market. Clarius would like to add some property to the Clarius Park. You'll recall back in 2019, we entered into an agreement to help them create that industrial park. They've already built 500,000 square feet, doing some great things out there, working very hard to attract industry to create some new jobs. They'd like to add some property to that, and our agreement would then provide the same incentives for the rest of that property to this new 18 acres. The documents have been reviewed by Michael Kozlarek. Administration has an opportunity to review and comment on those to make sure that they're all accurate as to form. We will attach, assuming we get the second reading, we will attach the appropriate agreements to that ordinance as exhibits.
Thank you, sir. You're going to have to press on Reno just a little bit to get you moved up in the agenda order. I'm sorry that we have kept you here this evening, but thank you for joining us. We appreciate it and appreciate what you're doing in the city of Greer, certainly, and great projects, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Comes with a recommendation in that regard, and so I'll entertain a motion to receive ordinance number 9-2021.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second, floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Council, we have one item before us this evening in executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a contractual matter pertaining to Station 361 as allowed by state statute, Section 30-470A2.
Comes as a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we are going to take advantage of the space that we're in to maintain spacing, which we can accommodate in our conference room. I will ask that anybody in the audience that would like to may step into the areas outside of this room. I do not anticipate there'll be action in regards to this executive session. Council, in executive session, we considered one matter. It was pertaining to Project Station 361. We held that discussion as allowed by state statute, Section 30-470A2. No action has been taken. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
And a second.
Second.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Stand adjourned, council.